And big news from the United States this week has been the release of the latest batch of documents on JFK's assassination.
Oh, absolutely. And I've got some basics just to kind of lay the groundwork on this. I've seemingly been covering a lot of JFK lately. Um, Back November 29th, late last year, I had covered a conference virtually in Dallas. And then I talked about JFK again February 28th after the February 21st death of Clinton Hill, the Secret Service agent that jumped on the back of the Kennedy limo. So here we go again with Kennedy stuff. Now, this first slide, just to lay the basics here, putting it on the screen. Going back to this one's from the National Archives. This is the official announcement, the 2025 documents released in accordance with President Trump's directive, March 17, 2025. As of that date, the directive was longer ago, January 23rd, I believe. All records previously withheld for classification that are part of the JFK Assassination Records collection are released. The National Archives has partnered with agencies across the federal government to comply with that executive order issued in latter January, number 14176. As of March 18th, just a couple of days ago, the records became available to access either online via the National Archives, or you can actually go in person to College Park, Maryland. And one of the complaints that I've heard so far, including from David Denton, an Illinois professor and JFK researcher that heads up the JFK Historical Group that gave that conference that I covered last November, there's no search engine and there's really no annotation. There's not a lot of categorization. So it's just a huge spew of data that's very onerous and time consuming to go through. That's one of the things that's the reality right now. But supposedly there's going to be a search function and a better organized way of looking through the files. The government is promising that. So we'll move on and look at this for just a moment. What it consists of mainly, generally speaking, is Section 10 of the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992. That's kind of the basis of it. It addresses information under court seal or for grand jury secrecy. That's part of the data dump. And Section 11 of that same Records Collection Act addresses records with tax return information, et cetera, et cetera. And on the 18th of March at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, there was 32,000 pages or a little over 1,100 PDF files released. And then later that same day, 18th of March, 31,400 pages. And again, almost 1,100 PDF files. So in total, it's 63,400 pages that were released. So it's a quantity thing. It's only a question of the quality. And what I've been hearing so far from a couple of researchers, not just Mr. Denton that I've talked to, is that it's not likely, at least it doesn't appear likely, that it's going to lead to any smoking gun or any major breakthroughs. It's a lot of miscellaneous, a lot of things about the Cold War, a little bit about Vietnam. But one thing I did get from David Denton, and we'll put this up, is that under the 2025 release, the agency being the FBI, the Professor Denton sent me this yesterday when I talked to him on the phone. Mark Lane, the noted researcher who brought out a pretty penetrating book not long after the events in Dallas, he was put under surveillance, as that slide indicates. He was speaking in Switzerland, promoting his work, and the CIA, their approval was needed. So they were surveilling people that were investigating the events in Dallas and second guessing the Warren Commission. So the CIA had him under surveillance. And then there was another document that Mr. Denton shared with me. And this one had to do with an author by the name of Thomas Buchanan. And this was actually from an earlier release of JFK files. We need to remember there were several releases, I believe 2017 and one or two subsequent to that, prior to the one that just happened this week. So authors, according to Professor Denton, authors that were looking into this thing early on were put under intelligence surveillance. And it also came out that a Gary Underhill, also named as John Garrett Underhill, he was a CIA asset, an agent. He made his name and you might say cut his teeth during the World War II era, which was the earlier version of the CIA before the CIA was officially created in 1947. And he felt that there was CIA involvement in the Dallas retirement plan, quote unquote, of JFK. And he felt it was a clique or a faction within the CIA, not the CIA as a whole. At least that's what's being reported. But there's a memo in the new data dump that strongly suggests that Gary Underhill was silenced by the CIA itself and supposedly committed suicide in his Washington apartment due to the knowledge he had of this supposed clique within intelligence that might have had something to do with the Kennedy affair. And he was known to be right-handed, but reportedly the self-inflicted gunshot wound was behind his left ear. That's one of the documents or one of the revelations that's making the biggest stir right now is the case of Gary Underhill. So these are some of the things, surveilling authors that were looking deeper into the affair, the Gary Underhill caper, also of interest. And from there, Larry Hancock, a noted JFK expert and author, I haven't heard much of his stuff, but he had something very interesting to say. He's talking about the fact that, yes, over 63,000 pages were released, but in this video, what he'll explain is that there are private collections that we may never see. And people always think, well, the National Archives has all the answers, they've gathered everything. But according to Larry, who's pretty respected in his field, that's not the case. There are private collections and many things that are off the grid, not available, and may never be available. And maybe we can listen at this point as to what he had to say.
Officially, with this release, it's done, because the whole collection that was, all the agencies, everybody that did the investigation and inquiry did it and sent it to NARA, the National Archives. One document that does not include some 2,300 either documents or pages. We're not sure yet, because they didn't say, that the FBI found a couple of weeks ago and said that they were giving to NARA that had not been part of the collection before. So what we've seen so far is material that was already at NARA. Beyond that, we could give you a list. We've actually prepared a list of dozens of files and dozens of pieces of material that could be collected that might help resolve the question, but that's not part of this. So what we really need, there would have to be a reset to collect new information. That's not what we're getting now.
So as you can see, there's a lot to be learned, not only because the existing data dump is hard to navigate, but there's many other things that we may never see, or at least it would require extra effort, maybe an act of Congress, whatever, to get these additional items, because it's really a qualitative matter, not a quantitative matter. Yes, we can look at documents about Martin Luther King, yes, about Vietnam War machinations, all sorts of things, plots by the mob to kill Castro and poison him, which is supposedly reportedly in the latest data dump. All these things are, of course, of interest, curiosity. But if we don't get to the core of what really happened on Dallas on November 22nd, 1963, then it's just more misdirection, throwing a bone to researchers so they can chew on it for a while, and so on and so forth. So we Americans have to demand quality, not quantity, and perhaps follow what Mr. Hancock is suggesting and get these things that we otherwise might not see. So with that, I think Patrick has some things to add.
Sure.